leaders of the world. Welcome to Spread Love in Organizations, a podcast for purpose-driven healthcare leaders striving to make life better around the world by leading their teams with genuine care, servant leadership, and love. I'm Naji, your host for this episode with Panos Alexakos, Head of Integrity, Ethics and Compliance for Novartis. Prior to leading integrity and compliance for Europe, Panos was the head of Central and Eastern Europe. He has been with Novartis for over 20 years and has worked in senior leadership roles in Greece, Germany, UK, and Switzerland. Panos brings with him experience from oncology, specialty and primary care, and also the consumer health division. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Mass Media Communications and an MBA, and he has also served as an officer in the Hellenic Military Air Force and held sales and marketing positions with Johnson & Johnson in Greece before joining Novartis. Born in Athens, Greece, and where he is now, Panos currently resides in Basel, Switzerland, enjoys spending time with his family and participating in endurance events. Panos, I'm thrilled to have you with me on this episode.
Thank you, Naji. I'm honored to be part of your podcast today, and I look forward, to our discussion. I was looking forward to this discussion for the last few weeks since you invited me, and I'm here to share my own experiences and learn also, from this discussion, because every discussion that I have helps me reflect back and sort of rethink, what drives me as a leader and what has brought me to where I am today.
Let's start by hearing your story, your personal journey, and really the story behind the great career that you have and the amazing leader that you are.
Thank you very much, Naji. So yeah, I think even if you wouldn't have said that I was born in Athens, Greece, people, when they hear the name, they automatically join the dots and they understand that I'm Greek. I was born and raised in Greece, where I lived for the first 17 years of my life, coming from a middle-class family. And when I was 17, I left to go to the US, where I studied, and I lived and worked and studied there for 6 years of my life before making one of the most important decisions of my life to return to Greece, in spite of me wanting to continue my life in the US because I loved the country, I loved the people, I loved the culture. While being there, I decided to come back because my parents were coming to a critical age where they would need further support, and it was between myself and my brother. And because they had done everything that they could to educate me and to give me what I would need for the rest of my life, I felt that it would be the right thing for me to return to Greece. And of course, be next to them and help them in any way that I could. At the same time, it's important to mention that in Greece, it still is today compulsory to serve in the military. So I had to also, at the same time, when I was coming back in a few months' time, I joined the Greek military Air Force. I became an officer. I served there for almost 3 years. And then, of course, I got out of the military because they give you the option to stay or to return to your civilian life. But I wanted to return to my civilian life and start with my civilian life or with my life in general, and started thinking about family, but also work, because they go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other because you need to support your family. So I started working in a very small media company because my first degree, as you've said already, is with mass media communications, and I stayed with them for about 5 years. But I realized that I could only reach the top of that organization. It was a very small international organization, but I could reach the top here in Greece of that organization, and that made me decide that I needed to go back in a crossroad point where I would say, what do you want to do next? Do you want to join a bigger company that gives you more opportunities to explore what you want to experience in the world? And I'll speak about that in a minute. Or do you want to live your life being in a small company that you've reached already your full potential? And of course, I made the choice of joining Johnson and Johnson, the consumers division at the time, and I became a sales rep. And I made a conscious decision. I took a big hit in my income, but I wanted to start fresh, and I wanted to see what a multinational career, or a career in a multinational company is what I mean, could do for me. And I made that conscious decision. I stayed with J&J for 5 years. And at that time, Novartis recruited me in becoming a sales director for for the consumer health division, which was an OTC division, basically, where I stayed for about 2 years. Then I moved into becoming sales director for the pharma division. Then I moved into becoming marketing director for a region, Central Europe, Middle East, and Africa, out of Germany. Then I was a marketing director for another region out of Basel. Then I returned to Greece to become the general manager of Novartis Oncology in Greece. And after 4 years, I became the Novartis Oncology general manager for UK and Ireland. And after that, I became a regional head for Central Europe, Middle East, and Africa, a region that I knew from my previous experience as a marketing director. And in July 2018, I made the conscious decision to change completely my career after being almost 20 years with commercial roles. And I became the head of ethics, risk, and compliance for Region Europe Pharmaceuticals in Novartis. And I said that I made that conscious decision because it mattered to me, because as we will probably come across it during our discussion, integrity is the highest value that I have. And I wanted to be able to contribute to the culture of the company in that particular um, side of things, because Novartis, having been or being a huge company with 120,000 associates operating in 140 countries around the world, it is important to have a culture of integrity, a culture of ethics that every associate can relate to, and every associate can be an ambassador of. And I saw that I could contribute to that culture and that sort of mindset for our associates. And if you ask me now, 3 years after making that important decision, I will stand by that decision. I will say it was the right decision to be made.
That is a great story, and well, you've done so many different roles within different organizations and countries. Before
Yes.
talking about those experiences and when you took with them, I want to go back to an experience, if I may.
Sure.
Very early on, you talked about military experience for
Yeah.
3 years.
Yes.
Anything, and I'll tell you afterwards why I'm asking this question, but anything you took from this military experience into
Oh, for
your
sure.
leadership journey later on?
Absolutely. I believe that although I did not appreciate at the time, the military trains you to be disciplined and to be resilient, in my personal experience with the military. And I think those two things play very well in also the leadership role that we have in this world. I'm not talking about, um, the company, the career, the professional career side of things. I'm talking about any leadership role that you have as a father, as a husband, as a human being, in a society, but also as a leader in any organization. Those two things can come in very, very handy, and they shape who you are, particularly the resilience piece, because I mean, even now, with the experience we're having with COVID, um, it's something that helps you deal with every adverse event that happens around you. Resilience is key, and that's one of the things that I'm trying my best to also share with other leaders in the organization, and with my own team. Because if you have resilience, you can certainly navigate through any paradox that is thrown at you in life. And that is very, very important. So those two things were from the positive aspect, what I took out of the military. What I didn't like about the military was the um, command and control sort of thing. That wasn't my type of leadership. Of course, I understand it works very, very, very well in the military, and they need that to operate in the military. However, I took from that what I didn't want to look like as a leader. I didn't want to be a command and control leader. Having said that, Naji, what I need to admit is that I did become a command and control leader very early on in my career when I went from Johnson & Johnson to Novartis. And I remember that time with not a lot of pride, I should say, because I wonder what impact I had on others. Well, I don't wonder any longer. I know what impact I had on others. It wasn't the kind of impact that I wanted to have, but I wasn't a self-aware leader at the time. So I could not really feel how I was making others feel by my command and control way. Um, I'm sure that I wasn't building a speak up culture. No one would voice their own sort of opinion, what they were thinking at the time, because I was the type of leader that wouldn't allow that. I would certainly yell at people, if they did something that upset me or that I disagreed with, and those are the moments that I don't want to forget. I always go back to remind myself what I don't want to do in a leadership role. Again, as a husband, as a father, as a leader in our society, or in a company like Novartis. I don't want to be that person, because I've been
That's
there and I've done that.
that's so powerful, Panos. What made you change? Because you were successful, right? Like I
Oh
see
yeah,
many times this, and as a question, you were successful with command
yeah,
and
yeah,
control,
yeah,
right? And it made you grow, you build,
absolutely.
you were promoted, and usually this
Yeah,
is what gets conflicted with
correct,
what we're talking about today, right? So what
correct,
made you
absolutely,
change, and how
absolutely.
did
Yeah,
you retain yourself? I would say once you change your leadership style, not to
yeah,
go back to what worked
yeah,
in moment where you needed to be resilient. Like I see
yeah,
these
yeah,
two
yeah.
always tensions, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You're so right. So I think that I think that at that time, what I was doing was working, and as you said, it brought me recognition, reward. I was promoted in other roles because I was bringing the results that I was expecting, and I was actually exceeding the results that I was expected to bring. So when you are in that situation where you see, well, actually what I'm doing, how I'm behaving is working, you need something to happen to wake you up and to let you see another side of the other side of the coin, that you could have that as an option. And hopefully most of the leaders go through that journey very early on in their career, um, before something happens, that almost traumatizes them, that help them become more self-aware, and they realize that management versus leadership is a different thing. Because as a manager, I think that everyone looks at you and they say, do you have the skills to deliver something, right? To execute something and make it happen. And I think that's all fine. But as a leader, you're looking for a different sort of, how do I achieve this? Do I achieve it through fear and through command and control? Or do I achieve it through engaging the people, motivating the people, and most of all, inspiring the people to achieve greatness? And for me, that happened quite late in my career, because I remember um, I was based in the UK actually, and in a very dark and rainy evening, talking about a restructure of the organization with my HR head. We call them people and organization now, P&O heads now in Novartis. So I'll use that term with my P&O head, but it was an HR head at the time. We were debating about a restructure that we wanted to do, and it was quite uh, an impactful restructure because we're going to let go of about 70 people out of 200 people in the organization. And I remember we're having a very heated discussion, a very big debate with my P&O head, and it became very, very emotional, particularly for my business partner, my HR business partner. And we finished the meeting. I said, enough of this. Let's sleep over it and let's meet tomorrow again to discuss what do we do. And luckily enough, this person was much more had higher empathy than I do, and was more self-aware than I was at the time. And when she left, she actually left me a little note on the windshield of my car with a quote from a well-known leader who's called Captain Webb. He was the first to swim the English Channel from the UK to France. And his quote, as soon as he finished with that swim, was nothing great is easy. And all of a sudden, when I found that note, I didn't really, and it had a really small smiley face on it, the note. So I picked up the note, before going home, and I looked at it and I tried to figure out who left me that note and what did that mean, because I didn't have any idea who Captain Webb was. I didn't have any idea, what the quote was about, and I didn't know who had left that note and what did they mean by that, right? So I went home and I had dinner with my family, and I Googled the quote, and all of a sudden, the story appeared, and I read the story. And then I made the connection. My business partner, my HR business partner, was a long distance swimmer. And I realized that she was the one that had left the note. And the next day, of course, I spoke to her and I said, well, I thanked her, for the inspirational quote that she had left. And I said, what did you want to tell me? And she said, no matter what decision you'll be making about the restructure of the organization, you have to always go back to a purpose that you have. And if your purpose is so important to you, as I think it is, then nothing should stop you, to see your purpose come through in the organization. And you should always remember, no matter how many challenges you'll come across, that nothing great is easy. And here we're talking about greatness. So you shouldn't be um, afraid, not in the sense of I'm scared of something, but of course, when before such events happen, when you have to deal with restructures, when you have to deal with reorganizations, of course there's some fear, and it's a good thing that there's fear there, because it keeps you being human, and it keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you wanting to go through the journey yourself. You want to feel how others will feel when you'll be announcing to them that I'm going to be reorganizing this team and there's going to be 60, 70 redundancies. You want to feel empathy for the people, because actually you are impacting a lot of people and the ones that depend on them. So for me, that was a key moment when I realized that it wasn't about command and control. It was about purpose, and it was about how do I inspire people and share with them why we're doing what we're doing. Because until then, Naji, I was a what and how leader. I was only focusing on what will change and how it will change. I wasn't going to talk about why. And that little instance with Natasha at the time, where she inspired me, to think about my purpose, where she inspired me to think about why am I doing why am I doing what I'm doing, made a huge difference to me, because it touched, we call it purpose. I like to call it the fire within me, because that's what's important, right? What burns inside that makes you get up in the morning, and no matter how difficult the day ahead will be, whether you'll be making a positive announcement or a negative announcement, it's important to go back to why you're doing what you're doing, to explain it to people and be very transparent and honest with them, so they know what's happening, and then ask them to join you and be part of the journey. And for me, that was a very big turning point in my career, or at least one of the big turning points in my career, because it made me realize that there was a fire within me and there was more to it than results, reputation within the company, success, reward, recognition.
That's well, it's so great to hear it from you, and thank you so much for your transparency and your humility,
Thank
honestly,
you.
to talk through this. It's many leaders, are afraid to share with such authenticity and vulnerability what they went through. So thank you so much, Panos, for that.
Thank you.
From this powerful experience that brought you to the purpose and then how and what. I'd love to understand how you do it now, leading leaders, and how
Yeah,
do you transfer this purpose that you personally have, this fire within you, to make sure that they are doing the same for their people, right? A little bit
absolutely.
what you lived with Natasha, but you
Yeah,
did
yeah,
great
yeah.
by allowing her, in fact, to come to you, right? I think even without
Yes,
noticing in your command and
yes.
control, you were allowing space, right? So how
Absolutely,
now do you
absolutely.
make sure that your leaders
Yeah.
have this purpose and that everyone in your organization live by this purpose?
Yes, yes. It's an excellent question, Ajay. And what I'm thinking of is that was the first step of realizing what I just now explained and how it helped me connect with my purpose. Um, and you're right, I don't know if it was me creating that space for Natasha or if Natasha was courageous enough and a bigger leader than I was at the time that helped me see what leadership was about or my leadership was about. The second step was that reorganization that I announced the following weeks failed. And it failed because it was a reorganization that was designed by Panos and maybe by Natasha, to the extent that Natasha contributed to that. But it wasn't a reorganization or a vision of the team itself. And that was the second lesson that I learned, that certainly to your vision, after your vision, um, to any reorganization you want to bring forward, you can go alone at it and you can plan it and you can execute it, but it doesn't mean that it will be successful um, if you do it and if you plan it alone. So the second lesson for me was when I saw that first attempt fail miserably, and when I gathered my team and I said, tell me, what did I didn't get right? Tell me, what would you want to see? And I invited them by creating that space, and I invited them and I insisted on them speaking up. I said, I won't judge you, I won't criticize, I won't be defensive, just tell me what we need to do differently to make this happen. And I realized that you need to open up that space, you need to invite the people that you work with um, and are the members of what you're trying to build to feel that they are contributing to your vision. And for me, and that's why I said I came across those things very late in my career. Whether I should have come across them earlier or not is not the point. The good thing is that I came across them, because I think every leader comes across these sort of experiences at a different stage in their career. So I realized that, if I wanted to be successful, I better start involving and engaging my team more in what I wanted to bring on as a vision to the team. And that's the point where magic started to happen and the team started being more engaged and motivated, and they started, I gave them a very small piece of the vision and started making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it became their own vision, and they did the restructure of the organization. It was a great success, and that's the turning point of the UK organization. And we then brought it to a different level, where the team was recognized in an event and they received an award for the excellent work that they had done. which for me was one of the proudest moment in my professional life. Um, and it was so great because it was a learning moment for me. I wasn't proud because we succeeded in what we wanted to succeed and we delivered what we had promised. I was proud because I felt that I was richer in experiences, in knowledge, and ready to share with others that particular experience. So to your point around, how do we ensure that I do that? In Novartis, in the company that I work with, at every single opportunity that I have, I go and speak to young leaders, and I go and speak to them about my own experience, about particularly the UK experience, from a professional point of view, and other experiences, from a personal point of view that have shaped who I am and how I function now, and how important purpose and why is. And also, I mentor people on this particular point, again, sharing my experiences, and also the team that I'm leading. Of course, on a daily basis, I coach them, and also I share very transparently all the experiences that I have. Even, at this stage where someone could say, well, you sound like an experienced leader, you sound like you know what you're doing, etc. I can tell you, there are things that I'm still learning about myself and learning still about the impact that I have on others. So yeah, I ask people, for feedback. I ask people, to tell me how I came across in meetings so that I can enrich my self-awareness and I can actually become a better leader for everyone that's around me, because that's what I'm here for. I want to serve the people and to spread the experience and the knowledge that I have through my own career. And as I said, it wasn't an easy one, but now it feels very fulfilling that I'm able to do that.
And well, you're such a servant leader, right? Like you said it, I want to serve the people
Yes,
and spread the knowledge. So transmitting
absolutely.
also the knowledge, because you care about them, right? And you care listening
100%.
to their feedbacks and the impact that you have on them.
100%, because I don't want to go back and be a leader who has an impact on them, but not the impact that I want to have on them. Because as a command control leader, you still have an impact on people, but it's not, I don't think, the impact that you want to have when you believe that you want to help them become more confident. You want to help them build a learning culture where you enable people to fail as you have failed and you have learned through it. Because failure is a great experience, right? I mean, as long as no one gets hurt. Failure is a great learning experience where you can sit down with your team and you can say, okay, let's review, what didn't go wrong, what didn't go so well or as we planned, and let's learn all of us through that experience. And I want to do that instead of that time, in the past where I would probably focus on, okay, who did what, so we can blame people and punish them actually, which
Yeah,
which doesn't lead you anywhere, right? People will
yeah.
run away from you, from that culture. Not only you, but from that culture. No one wants to be part of a team where on Monday morning you'll be delegating responsibilities, and by Friday you'll be saying, Panos, you did a miserable job, you're out. No one wants that. No one wants that.
And what you shared, Panos, about when you started to build this culture, right, based on purpose, values, and then you did a huge co-work, right? Like you worked with everyone to build and for them to
Absolutely.
be part of this bigger vision.
Yeah.
You talked about results being even stronger, right?
Yes.
And sometimes this is where it gets like, I'm sure as you're building it now you're convinced about it, and sometimes where results gets lower, we tend
Yeah.
to go back to command and control,
Yes.
right? So but
Yes.
again, like this is another and yet another example that it works, command and control, until a certain point where you
Yeah.
will lose people and it
Yeah.
won't work. But building everyone together, even when it goes bad, you know how to get together to make it better and exceed whatever objective you have, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Naji. And I was fortunate enough to have also leaders that role model that. I remember in 2015, we had a terrible year. I was a commercial leader at the time. I was reporting to the region head of Europe, and we had a terrible year in terms of results. were down 15%, 20%. I cannot even remember. And that particular leader would call us all in and he would say, I know you're doing a fantastic job. There's nothing more that I can ask of you. The only thing that I want is to stay on course with our vision, with our purpose, remember our values, remember, how we want to conduct ourselves, in these difficult times. We'll all navigate through. And when the year finished, we celebrated, although we had not reached our numbers, but I still remember that leader celebrating the work that everyone had done, because for him, yes, results did not come as anticipated, but everyone had given their best self, to maintain at least a performance that we were all proud of, with the right values, with right behaviors. And when you see someone doing that, someone you respect and someone that you have as a role model yourself, you can learn so much out of that and say, when Najee does this, this is the time that I'll remember, in another tough year where I'll be in his place, to make sure that I sustain my course and I keep my people motivated and engaged without blaming anyone, and just accept that it's going to be a difficult period, but help them navigate through. This is pretty similar to, I love to call myself an explorer, and because I call myself an explorer of different cultures and different leaderships, and I love. I'm so curious that I love being thrown in any challenge, um, and I love reading about explorers of the past. And one of the explorers that I love reading about is Shackleton, and there is a book out there which speaks about him being a great leader, not because of his discoveries, but because he managed to save his team while they were having a very difficult challenge ahead of them where anyone could die. But he gave up his mission and he prioritized the safety of his crew. And for me, that also, serves as a reminder that things can go wrong, but what's important is for the team that you have around you, the team that surrounds you, and the team that looks at you, for making those important decisions together with them, is to ensure that they are all in good mental and physical health, because we're not here to be the command and control leaders that we impact their mental health and their physical health. And I've seen the result of that as a command and control leader in the past. I had people that suffered because of me, and I don't want to do that again. I also, and I love the title of your podcast, Spread the Love, because love for me did not come easy. And I don't mean love with my wife or with my family. I mean with loving myself. In Greece, in contrary to the US, for example, I've experienced both educational systems. In Greece, the educational system at the time I went to school here, I went to primary school and high school in Greece, was all about performing. The teacher on a daily basis would call you and you would stand up in front of the whole class and you would have to tell the lesson that was taught yesterday from the teacher. And that was a very, I would say, tough environment to be in, because it was a shaming environment primarily at that time. The teacher would mostly shame the student that didn't know the lesson of the day. And it wasn't an easy experience for me in particular, because I wasn't the most disciplined student in the class. And I would rather play outside rather than study and learn the lesson for the following day. So when I went to the States, when I went to study in university in the US, I actually became a very good student because there was class participation, and it wasn't about shaming. I was fortunate enough, to go to a university, to an institution that was all about, being engaged in class, participating in class, speaking up, and they helped me overcome what I felt about myself when I was in school in Greece, which was I was ashamed because so many times I was called up and I did not know the lesson. So imagine a class of
Yeah.
30 people looking at you, not knowing what to say, being a very awkward moment, but you carry those things with you for a long time.
Yeah.
So you need to learn again from beginning to love yourself and to deal with your imperfections.
Yeah.
And certainly, humans are imperfect. And that's the second thing that I love to do with people, because a lot of the um, managers or leaders that are early on in their career are striving for perfection because that's what they've been taught in early days or in early years of their lives. Be perfect, don't show vulnerability, don't show fear, don't show embarrassment or whatever that is. Don't show sort of your, let's call them weaknesses, right? Because that's what they implant
Yeah.
in our
Don't show
heads.
emotions, right?
Yeah, don't show emotions because emotions can be seen as weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
So I was one of these people, that thought that, oh my God, I'm not perfect, and others can see that I'm not perfect. So I had to learn how to love myself again and to deal with my imperfection. And I see a lot of leaders in the organization that at least I work in being the same young in the earliest years of their career. And that's the second thing that I'm working on with those leaders. I'm trying to help them love themselves and help them accept their imperfections and to actually show their imperfections, because that's what authenticity is, to be able to share who you are with your perfections but also with the imperfections that you have. And no one is perfect. I mean, if we were perfect, we wouldn't be human beings, we would be gods. I don't know what we would be, but certainly, we're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be imperfect, and because those imperfections help us grow
Yeah.
as human beings, as leaders.
Totally. Such amazing advice for the people you're coaching and for all our listeners today.
Thank
Panos,
you.
I want to jump into a very brief section where I would give you one word and I'd love to have your reaction to this word.
If I can, of course.
So the first one is we talked a lot about it, but I want like a short reaction to it. Leadership.
Authenticity is what comes into mind, because I wouldn't sacrifice authenticity for leadership. You have to be, whatever you do in life, you have to be yourself. You shouldn't put up a mask to show up as others are expecting you to show up or as others would like you to show up. You should be your authentic self. And through that authenticity, I think that you'll find your purpose, and you'll find um, your followers. Allow me to say that in a very naive but open way, because we all have followers, whether it's our children, whether it's our family, whether it's our friends, whether it's our coworkers. It's important, to have people that trust you for who you are and what you can bring to them.
Integrity.
My highest value. Um, if I may open a little bracket here and say, it came very early on in my life, because when I think I must have been 9 or 10 years old. I went with a friend in the supermarket, and my friend convinced me in stealing a little sachet of Kool-Aid at the time. And I went home. My father was a police officer, and he was, he was nothing like what we want to imagine police officers, tough, firm with what he believed and everything else. He created a very safe environment for me and my brother, actually, in the house. And he saw me making the Kool-Aid, but he knew that he didn't buy it. He hadn't bought it because he was the one bringing the groceries. So he asked me, where did I get it? And being the person he was, he had allowed me that space to be honest with him. And I said, listen, this is what happened. Now, I grew up in a very small suburb outside of Athens, where we had, at that time, when I was 9 or 10, we had only one supermarket. My father served in that police department of that suburb, and he knew the supermarket owner. So he asked me to walk with him back to the supermarket and go and tell the supermarket owner what I had done and to apologize to him, and he paid for the Kool-Aid. And that was the biggest integrity lesson that I ever had in my life from my father, because as we're walking out of the store, he said, "Never let the hands, shame your face." He said, "Never let these do this, to shame your face, to shame your reputation, to shame, who you are, because that's what you have in life. You have a reputation, you have your name." So that was the biggest integrity lesson that I ever had in my life. And for me, that has stayed with me all along. I've shared the story with, with my family, with my coworkers. When they ask me to speak about integrity, people might expect, I'll speak about theory about integrity, but I always refer to that story because it has stayed with me and has been so impactful to me.
Definitely. And it will be for all of us. What about spread love in organizations?
They go hand in hand. I mean, I believe that people are coming to realize that without love, you will not have an organization that can attract the right people in it. We don't want to be part of organizations that want to be the command and control organizations, or want to shame people, or want to punish people for making mistakes, etc., etc. So I think spreading love is becoming more and more popular in organizations. People realize that with love, you can achieve far more than you can through command and control. And you're talking to someone who has learned it through the experiences. So when I speak about spreading love, that's what I talk about, right? You don't need to do more than love the people that you have around you and allow them to be themselves.
Yeah.
And the rest will follow, right?
I can't agree more. But thank you so much, Panos. Any final word of wisdom for leaders in healthcare around the world?
I think the final words of wisdom that I could give is what I've mentioned already. Humans are not meant to be perfect. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to show your emotions. Don't be afraid to speak about who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going. And the journey will help you find the fire within you that I spoke about earlier on. The fire within you is the most important part that you should never give up on, and you should always go back to see if it's still burning, and to challenge yourself to help you navigate through all the crossroads that you come across through life. So those are the only words that I can share with the rest of the people that will hear this podcast. Spread the love. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much for such an inspiring discussion, Panos, today.
You're very welcome, Naji. Thank you for having me here. It's been an honor, and I hope your listeners will enjoy our discussion.
Thank you all for listening to Spread Love in Organization podcast. Follow us on social media and connect with us on SpreadLoveIO.com. We're looking forward to reading your feedback and reviews on your favorite podcast app. And most importantly, spread love in your organization.